What is up, everyone? I am Joe DeHoyos. I'm host of Beyond the Woodline. This is our second take, technically. I'm sorry. We are a minute late. But um, real quick before we get started, just want to tell you guys a little bit about myself. Some of you may or may not know I am a member of the JRG, which stands for the Jevning Research Group. It is headed up and founded by Mr. William Jevning. He is a longtime Bigfoot researcher. He's been doing it for over 50 years at this point. Uh, he was friends with Renee Hendon and John Green. Those are two of the four guys that are considered, uh, I guess, the pioneers in the Bigfoot research world. And he had his first Bigfoot experience when he was in his early teens, 13, 14, 15, something like that. I can never remember. But anyhow, if you guys would like to join this group, we have teams in California, in Oregon, in Washington, in New York State, Florida, Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi, here in Texas, where I'm at, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and I'm sorry if I said some of these states a couple of times, Michigan. I know I'm missing a couple other states too. If you're interested in joining one of these teams, send me an email, beyond.woodline@gmail.com. We will get you started. If you're in a state and there's not a team there, you want to create your own, you're fine. You're very welcome to do that. And if you're in a state and there's a team there, you just want to start your own, you're welcome to do that as well. But we will vet you. We vet anyone we set you up with, and we ask that you do the same. We always say, research the researcher, right? Unfortunately, people can be sometimes. So just do your research, and we will too on our end. With all that being said, we know you don't tune in to hear me ramble on all night. I have with me Mr. Mathew David Hart. How are you doing, sir?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, man, thanks so much for doing this. I do appreciate it. We were having a good conversation before we came on. I wish we could have kept on talking, actually. You seem like a fun guy. You've got a great energy, and I absolutely love that. So if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you into this crazy genre we find ourselves in.
Yeah, well, I didn't intend to get into this genre. I did it by accident, and I spent many years in the entertainment industry. I still am in that industry, working as a producer of television and feature films. And but when I was a young man, before I had a career, I had heard a story from a trusted friend of my sister's, which was about something called automatic writing. And I knew nothing about it. At that point in my life, I was scientifically minded. I was sort of academically gifted. I didn't believe in God, but I didn't not believe in God. I was just sitting on the fence because I was the kind of person who needed proof. If there was no proof, I wasn't going to believe. And so when this trusted friend told me this story about automatic writing, and it was a story about his sister, and his sister had apparently kept a dream journal beside her bed. And one morning she woke up and looked in her dream journal, and there was writing in it that came from, she didn't know where it came from, but it spoke about her sister, and it gave intimate details about an affair her sister was having with a married man in the small community that they lived in. And she was, really intrigued. And so she went to her sister and confronted her, and the sister got crazy mad and said, where did you get this information? And she told her, it's just in my dream journal. Somebody wrote it there in handwriting. And she said, show me that. And she showed her the dream journal. And what was in there was not only information about this affair that she was having, which nobody knew about, but it was, yeah. When I tell these stories about other people's lives, I got to get sidetracked. But anyway, what was in there was information that was taken directly from her sister's diary, like word for word. And this was a private diary that, again, this girl wasn't supposed to see. So when the sister saw that her diary had been copied right into this book, she got incensed, and she said, she accused her of looking at her diary and then writing about it. Anyway, long story short, The next night, another thing showed up in her dream journal. And this time there was information that wasn't in the sister's diary, but was again very factual and intimate. And it turned out that over time, more entries appeared. And what would happen is this girl would in the night, she would get up and write in the journal, but she would be totally like unaware, unconscious. So she was sleep writing, if that could be such a thing. And, my friend called it automatic writing. And I thought, wow, and ultimately a woman introduced herself through the writing who claimed to have been alive in England in the 1800s and was now a spirit guide to this young girl. And this was all fantastic to me. I'd never heard, anything like it. And I trusted my friend, and he claimed it was his own sister. And I had no reason to disbelieve him, but it gave me an idea. And the idea was maybe I could consciously choose to allow a spirit being, if they were real, to write a message to me, not while I'm sleeping, but while I was awake. And so, my mother was spiritual, my father was not. But I happened to be at my mother's house that night, and I told her, I'm going to do this experiment. I'm going to put a pen in my hand, and I'm going to close my eyes, and I'm going to invite, if ghosts are real, I'm going to invite one to write me a message. And my mother said, don't do that. She said, ghosts are dangerous. You have no idea what kind of trouble you could get into. And I was like, what could be so dangerous about a ghost if they're even real? So the next day I did it anyway, in spite of my mother's words. I put a pen in my hand, I sat at a desk, and I closed my eyes, and I said, even though I didn't believe in God, I said in my head, if there's such a thing as ghosts, I would like a good ghost, not a bad ghost, to write me a message and prove to me that ghosts are real. And this is what got me into all kinds of trouble for the next 22 years. And so I need to say to your audience, don't ever do that. It's really, really dangerous. And here's why. Because as I was sitting there, 10 minutes went by and nothing happened. And I started to think, this is ridiculous. I'm being foolish. There's no such thing as ghosts, and nobody's going to write a message. But I still persisted. And after a few minutes, all of a sudden, I felt this sensation like I'd never felt before. And it was a waterfall of chills that rushed down into my head and right down into my body. So like chills that went from here all the way down, starting at the crown. And it shocked me, and it was unmistakable. It was really really vivid. And I thought, is that a ghost? And I kind of, for a minute, I thought maybe I shouldn't do this. But then I thought, no, I want to know if ghosts are real. And so this is why I came here. So don't be chicken, do it. Let it happen. And so I persisted. And long story short, my arms, started to move. My eyes were closed and I couldn't see what was happening. But my hands started to move. And when when it stopped, I opened my eyes and looked at the page, and it had drawn a circle, but it had traced it several times, and then it had spiraled around the inside of the circle and stopped. And I saw that, and I thought, wow, that's interesting. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to move the pen to a clean area of the page and close my eyes, and it did it again. And this went on for a while. Four pages of small spirals were filled up while I kept doing this and doing it. And then suddenly it did something different, and it drew a straight line on a new piece of paper that I had introduced, like page number 4 or 5, and it drew across the page and onto my desk. And I set the pen back to the beginning of the line it had drawn, and it drew across it again, traced it, and off the desk. So I put it on a new area of the page, and it wouldn't move. And I thought, that's weird. I put it back to the original drawing, and it went across that same line again onto my desk. And I realized, I think it needs another piece of paper to be put there. So I put another one. And, before long, I had to move the whole operation to the floor because it was just too much. And I taped the pages together, and a half hour or so later, 40 minutes later, I had an immense 50-page drawing of what I thought I was drawing, just at nothing, an abstract line drawing, but it was definitely a self-portrait of a spirit being and long, wavy arms and wavy legs and this stout torso and a bulbous mushroom-like head. It was creepy, really creepy looking and huge. And that started my journey. I guess I got to get to the end of this story though, before we go on. And that is that I wanted to show my mother because she was the one who told me how dangerous this process was going to be. And I thought, wow, I have a cool, spooky drawing to show her, but nothing dangerous happened. So I called up my mother at my parents' home, and my eldest sister, who still lived at home, was there, and she answered the phone and told me that our mother was out for the day and wasn't going to be back until like 9:30 that night. And I was super disappointed because I wanted to show somebody. And so my sister agreed that I could come over and show her. And so I was like, great, I'll be over. And I jumped in the car and packed all this stuff up, and I brought it to her. And we went up into my mother's kind of bedroom sitting room area. She had 2 rooms that adjoined with an arch between them. And I unfolded the big drawing, and I showed my sister, and she was like nonplussed. She was just like, oh, that's interesting. But she wasn't like as enthusiastic as I kind of hoped that she might be or expected that she might be. And so I said, okay, I'm just going to leave these here for Mom when she comes home. And I folded them all up and left them on a table in her sitting room, and went home and kind of felt depressed about the whole thing. And I wasn't prone to depression, but this made me depressed. The fact that I was expecting some kind of reaction and I didn't get it. And I went home, and because I was feeling depressed, I went to bed at I think 9 o'clock that night. I couldn't stay awake any longer. And I hadn't heard from my mom, but I was woken up by a phone call. And it turned out it was like 9:30 or 9:45, I think. And it was my mother, and she said, and she sounded aggravated. She said, were you in my house today? And I was like, yeah. And she said, did you bring some drawings over here? And I was like, yeah, why? And she said, because there's something in my room and I can't get it out and it stinks. And whatever you brought here, you need to come here right now and take that thing back the hell wherever you got it from. And I was like, I was flummoxed by the whole thing. I couldn't believe what she was talking about. And I was like, smells? And she goes, yes, it smells like rotten. Like she described it as feces and burning rubber. And my mother was immaculately clean. Like her house was impeccable. Like she was obsessed with cleaning. So if she smelled something that rotten, I couldn't imagine what it was. But anyway, I went there. It was now, I think, about 10-ish. But by the time I arrived, and my mother and my sister are waiting out on the outside of the house. It's March, it's night, it's cold, and they're outside waiting for me. And I went there, and I said, "Are you sure you smelled something? Like maybe you guys are spiritual and you can smell something, but maybe because I'm not, my nose won't smell what you smell." And they said, "Oh no, you're gonna smell it. Trust us, you're gonna smell it." And so in we went. My mother made me go upstairs first. We got to her bedroom on the second floor, and the door was closed. And I opened it up, and I was thinking, "There's nothing. There's gonna be nothing." I opened the door. I walked in, and I swear to God, I've never smelled anything this rank in my entire life. It was like, I mean, in the film industry, I've worked in some strange places. I've worked in a morgue before, and this smelled 1,000 times worse than a morgue. It was like a thick wall of putrescence. It was just thick and vile, and I just kind of stepped into it like I'm walking into like something wet. It was disgusting. And stepped into the room, and I immediately felt mad at this ghost because I had asked for a good ghost, and clearly this was not good. And I started swearing at it and get that, hell out of here. And this is not what I asked for. And my sister, who's so demure and polite, she's right behind me, and she's saying, "You bastard, go out, go home, get out of here." And anyway, after that went on for a few moments, my mother said, "Okay, we're going to go pray in the bedroom area, and you go pray right here in the sitting room area." And I went, "Well, I'm not going to pray. I don't even believe in God." And she said, "Well, then just stand there and feel sorry for what you've done."
Yeah.
So I did. I stood there, and my mother prayed, and I don't know, 30 seconds, a minute later, my mom came out and said, okay, it's not working. um, we're just going to leave the room, and I'm going to call some men from my spiritual group to come in the morning, and maybe they can do a clearing. And anyway, we left the room, shut the door, and there was no way I was going to go back to my apartment where I lived. I couldn't bear the thought of sleeping, alone in my apartment. So my mother, sister, and I all went up to, this was a three-story old century home. We went up to the third floor to my sister's bedroom, and my mom and sister slept in the bed, and I slept on a makeshift bed on the floor. And I think before we went upstairs, my sister remembered suddenly something she had forgotten to tell me. And that was during the day, she had had a nap after I left and went home. She had a nap in my parents' bedroom. And she woke up from that nap after, a half hour because she was hearing strange mumbling sounds and in a half dream state. And those mumbles started to become more loud. And eventually, still in the half dream state, she heard, "Get out, get out." And then a loud command, "Get out." And she woke up and left the room. And she told me this just before we went to bed. And I laid there trying to fall asleep that night thinking, am I going to hear this ghost? What's it going to be doing down there tonight in that room? But, and that was an old house. There were radiators. It was March, so they were on. And, there's pops in an old home. But there was no, I didn't hear any sounds from the ghost. And the following morning, the sun was shining. We went downstairs, and my mother said, "You go first again." And I'm standing outside the door thinking, I'd seen maybe it was the Amityville horror, where you can't believe that people are crazy enough not to leave the house. That went through my head, and I'm thinking, is the room going to be all turned upside down and symbols etched into the wall? But I opened the door, and the room looked normal, and I stepped in, and it smelled like it had always smelled. Like there was no sign of that horrible stink that was there. And we went over to the drawings, by the way, and smelled them, and they did not have any odor, and they didn't the night before either. Like the drawings weren't the source of the odor; it was in the room. So my mother said, "Well, it appears to be gone, but we can't be sure, so I'm going to still let those men come over and do a meditation in my room." And they did. They came over, and my mom said, "You need to sit in the foyer of the house while they do it, and we can just to make sure, that any remnant of that ghost is cleansed from you while they do the meditation upstairs." So I was like, okay, fine. I felt ashamed for not listening to her and for the trouble I had caused. So I thought, I'm not going to argue. I'll sit there quietly. And I did. And literally the moment the meditation started, I started to cough, and my throat got itchy, and my eyes started watering, like crazy watering. And they literally went on for, I think this meditation lasted 20 minutes to a half hour. I think it was 30 minutes. And I was pouring the whole time. My mother brought me Kleenex. I was blowing my nose. It just wouldn't stop. Anyway, when the men finished, they came downstairs. My mom said, "How was it?" And they said, "Oh, it was fine. It was great. We had a lovely meditation." And they went home, and my mom said, "You need to burn those drawings in the fireplace." And I was like, okay, I'll burn them. And so we lit a fire in her fireplace and burned the drawings. And I thought that was the end. I thought the ghost that I had invited into me to write was the one that left me, and that my ghostly experience was over. I now knew that ghosts were real. And that was the end of it. But it turned out that was the beginning. And I'm not going to go into the next story. We'll talk about stuff. But a year later, in March again, another experience happened. This time, it wasn't anything conscious on my part. I didn't invite anything to happen. It just happened. It was another ghost experience, this time with a being that actually spoke to me. And these experiences didn't stop for 22 years because what I didn't know, and I wouldn't know until till I think 2018. So this is 1982 when the second experience, 1983 when the second experience happened. I wouldn't know for decades that when I allowed that first ghost to write through me, it had two entities had attached to me. And they stayed with me for all that time, and they pretty much wrecked a large portion of my life, my creative life. Really, my creativity was completely stifled for all those years, and it frustrated me. And then I had all kinds of symptoms that I didn't understand what it was. I thought I was having these problems. I had never attributed it to something foreign that was attached to me. Depression, anger issues, frustration issues, but not just mild, like major and debilitating. And it went on and on and on. And during all that time, I had more and more experiences until finally a positive experience happened with a spirit being, which started to turn my life around a little bit. But that was how it all began.
Yeah, dude, that is a crazy, crazy story, and it's right up there with some of the uh, definitely most intriguing ways how a person can get started in this, you know, unintentionally, right?
Yeah.
But I did want to ask you. You kept saying ghost. Is that what you meant? Is that what this thing was, a ghost? And I'm saying that with air quotes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It was, I believe it was a ghost. And I believe that because the spirit attachments that I had were ghosts, and I learned things about them through my journey. Um, I foolishly, anyway, yes, they were ghosts. I learned later down the road that there's a thing called demons, which I knew nothing about. And I realized that I had two different encounters with demons where they literally spoke to me. And that's a completely different kind of entity. And this ghost that manifested in the room and the two that had attached to me, they never spoke to me. Maybe they showed up in dreams. They communicated through automatic writing, which I foolishly played with again in 1985 for a little bit of time, and then I never did it again. But yeah, they were definitely the deceased humans
Okay.
who did not go to the light when they died. This particular pair I learned about. Again, there's no proof of this kind of thing, but this is after years of living with them and the kind of information they leaked to me through dreams and through the little bit of automatic writing I did early on. I believe that they committed at least one murder, and it was a husband and wife or a man and a woman who were romantically involved. They committed a murder, and I don't know what else they did, but they did not move on to the light when they died. For whatever reason, they decided to stay, and they ended up attached to me.
Real quick, I just want to say hi to Miss Sandra. Thank you for tuning in, Sandra. I do appreciate you as always. One question I did want to ask you was this drawing. Did you wind up burning it? And if so, have you ever tried to replicate it again?
Oh, I did. It did get burned. It was, ashes. I didn't try to replicate it. I guess I could. It's been a long time. It's been 40 something years since that happened. But it left an impression on me. I definitely remember the shape and the head was really weird. That bulbous mushroom-like head. But I haven't tried to replicate it. But in 1983, after my second spirit encounter, something possessed me to draw in my journal two ghostly images. I have no idea why I did it, but I drew two. I didn't know I had two attachments, and one of them looks male and one of them looks female. It's weird, but it's the only ghostly drawings I have in volumes and volumes of journals that I kept over the years. And, I posted those drawings online because they were kind of reminiscent of the drawing that I did, but way more detailed. They had faces and, the line drawing that that came through that spirit was just literally an outline of a spirit being. It didn't fill in his space.
And have you heard of anyone else having the same kind of experience that?
I haven't talked about these experiences. I really didn't know how to talk about them for many years until after I actually understood what happened to me. And, I knew I wanted to write a book about it after one particularly crazy experience I had in 2004 where I was attacked by a demon. And before that experience happened, I was told in a dream that there was a book that I was to write based on my journals. And so I was excited about that. And so ever since then, that moment, I tried to write a book. But I couldn't. Every time I tried, I got confused. I didn't really understand. And it's really because I didn't understand what had happened to me. I had no idea I had attachments. So how can you write a story about attachment, when you don't even know you had them? So I didn't talk about this with anybody. I had a career and I still do. And, it's not the kind of thing you bring up at work.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I've only just, I finally was able to write the book and publish it in 2024, a book called 9 Ghosts. And that's because looking back over my journals, everything finally clicked and I understood, I don't know if I have it exactly right, but I'm pretty sure I have it 90 something percent right. Okay. And I was able to put it down in a book. And I've been busy ever since with work, and it was only just recently you found me because I've had some time on my hands. I'm in between jobs, and it's been going on for several months, and so I've had time. And I thought, well, now that I've written my book, it would be great to talk about these things and put them out there because I would love to help people, and I would hope that I could help someone avoid going through what I've been through because, nobody needs that in their life. Nobody needs to live with attachments. And I also am concerned that it's way more prevalent out there in society than people realize because these attachments are really subtle and crafty. I mean, they don't want to be discovered. They want to carry on through you vicariously. And if they're not discovered, it serves their purposes. And so I really think it's a problem. And I decided to talk about it and post stories about it. And that's how you found me because I literally just started talking about it. So maybe some people will come forward and say, that happened to me. And that would be great to hear about it.
I've got already a million questions and we're like 30 minutes into an hour-long show, right? So I'm going to invite you back again, definitely. Sure. But one question I have is you said that you were told to write this book, right?
Yeah.
Who was it and how? You said it was in a dream?
Yeah.
Right. Although who or what asked you or told you? How did that work out?
Well, yeah. In 1999, I discovered channeling by accident, like everything I discover. It's not, I'm not looking for answers. I've never known where to look for.
And I don't mean to interrupt you. Were you? Or do you have these gifts? Were they given to you, or did they just come to you? I don't know how to explain it. It just happened.
I imagine I'm sensitive. I'm an empath. I mean, I'll cry now. I didn't back then, but now that I'm sort of, my heart has been restored and the attachments are gone, I'm aware that I'm I'll cry at the sappiest thing, and if somebody is someone on the street is struggling, someone I don't know has an issue, I'll cry for them. So I definitely have empathic kind of connection and very sensitive. Beyond that, I don't know. I mean, the things that have happened to me sort of make it seem like maybe I'm psychic, but I can't do these things on command. I'm not like a medium. I can't call forth something. Channeling, I believe anybody can learn to do. And although I learned it accidentally. But when I learned to channel, I then, soon after, I met through the channeling a spirit guide And soon after that, that spirit guide, when I had questions about angels, because my mother had given me a book about angels and I knew nothing about them, my spirit guide said, I'm not an angel and I'll introduce you to yours
Okay.
if you want to speak, if you want to know them. And he introduced me to my guardian angel. And that's when things took a big turn. That was 2003. Like, I met my spirit guide in 2000, and in 2003, he introduced me to my guardian angel.
Okay.
And after that, things took a big turn, and for the better. And I was able to, they not only did they speak to me through channeling, but through dreams. I was very aware when I had what I call like a download dream. I would wake up and know things about myself, about my situation, that there's no way I could have known. And I just knew it. I knew it. And I knew it came from a dream. And I would remember sometimes those dreams, the conversations that took place. So I would wake up and I would write in my journal, I just had a conversation with the angels in my sleep. And to answer your question, that's what happened. It was January the 8th of 2004. I woke up and I remembered a dream. And in the dream, I remembered somebody telling me, and I just assumed it was an angel, telling me that I was to write a book based on my journals. And they showed me, and they said, and you're to write a letter of introduction to the group that's going to publish your book one day. And they showed me the letter. It had already been written in my dream. And when I woke up, all I could remember was the very first sentence, which just said, "We have never met." That's all I could remember. But I was excited when I woke up because I wanted to write my entire life, and I was so bottled up creatively, I never could. And I tried and kept failing. And suddenly in this dream, what I perceived as angels telling me to write a book based on my journals, and I had thousands of pages. I was excited and went to my computer and literally typed in that sentence, "We have never met," to write a letter of introduction to some publisher for a book that's not even been written. And that sentence suddenly opened up like Pandora's box, and a channeled message came out without me intending to channel, and a whole experience happened, which was very beautiful initially and then turned very dark very quickly.
Really?
Yeah, and it became a demon. That was the demon attack. It followed that experience. But anyway, that's how.
So do you think that you doing this, and I don't know how to really word it, doing this good thing, right? This good deed, do you think that triggered the attack? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, every time I've done something for good forward, when I try to do something good and put it out there online, twice in the past, big moments, like I started a blog in 2006 because by then I had accumulated a lot of angelic messages, and I thought, they've helped me. I want to put them on a blog and just share them with other people in case these little short messages might help other people. And so I started a blog. At the time, I called it Messages from the Angels. And when I went to put it on, I debated with myself, should I do this? Should I not do this? And I had it already, and my finger was on, publish. And some part of me was like saying, oh, is this a good idea? What if people I know find it in the business and they think I'm crazy because I communicate with angels? And I thought, no, the reason for doing this is to help people. And I hit publish. And I went to bed that night. And the next morning, this was like 9 at night when I published it. And the next morning I woke up and I had my first comment. And I was so excited to see, who would comment, what they would say. And I opened it up, and it was, I erased it. I don't have it, and I wish I did. But it was the most foul-mouthed attack on Jesus Christ that I couldn't even imagine it. It was like it was written by a demon. It was disgusting, and it went on for, 200 words. And on my site, I had never mentioned Jesus, although in my past, I had a huge encounter with Jesus. It's my third ghost encounter was a literal moment where Jesus manifested in a room with me. But I hadn't mentioned Jesus in this blog that I published, and yet this scathing attack came in, and it chilled me to the bone, and I immediately hit delete. And then years later, I was like, damn, why did I do that? I could have copied it, but just so I could share how like demonic it was. It was
Right.
just,
Yeah.
so that was that. And then in 2011, I started this meditation group based on a dream I had. I published a dream, which was this vision for a beautiful new world. And I published it, and a woman in Jerusalem saw it. And she said, your dream is my dream. And I have this meditation event I'd like to use your dream as the basis for. And, asked if I had a video to promote it. And I didn't, but in the dream, I saw myself holding up cue cards like, they were doing back then in that day, and sharing the dream on cue cards. And I made this YouTube. And again, I put it up on YouTube, and it went viral right away. Like for the next 8 hours, there were comments coming from all over the world. I had like very quickly, like 25,000 views. And this is back in 2011. And then that evening, all of a sudden, the comments, which were coming like nonstop all day long, just stopped. Nothing. Like, and I thought, oh, did YouTube just, put some kind of something on a ban on my video for some reason? Yeah. I didn't know, but it literally stopped. And I went to bed thinking that's weird. Like I watched for a few hours and there was nothing after all day, constant. And the next morning I woke up and I went to the YouTube, and there were still no new comments. So I thought, I'm going to just read through the ones that did come in again, because they were really uplifting. And I got to this one where this woman had said to me, because we were organized, the video was to promote a meditation event, a worldwide meditation event. And this woman got on there and said, you can't just invite random people to meditate. She said, I was invited to a meditation several months ago, a similar kind of thing. And I got attacked while I was meditated by something dark, and it stayed with me and has been harassing me ever since. And I've only just freed myself from it. And she said, you can't do this. And I said, I hear you, and I'm really sorry for what you've been through, but like, this is inspired by the light. This is for the people's good. I'm not going to like be intimidated into not doing it because of darkness. I said, I'll caution people to, ask their angels and God to surround them with divine light before they meditate and protect them. But we're going to go ahead. And when I went the next morning and looked through those messages and saw that exchange with her, my message when I said, it's okay, we're going to protect ourselves, we're going to do all that, had been completely erased from my YouTube. And in its place, it said, this woman's name was Becky. It said, oh, Becky, don't be such a buzzkill. And that was in my name on my YouTube.
Whoa.
And I got chilled. I'm like, what just busted into my YouTube? And then I went through all the comments and nothing had been altered. Just that one response to the woman who had had attacks for multiple months. And I tried to reach out to her, and she had eliminated her YouTube. I couldn't find her. I had no way of reaching her. I felt badly, but I knew that, again, was demonic beings. Like, they can manipulate computers. They can do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they absolutely can. They absolutely can. So one of the reasons why I had asked you was really a kind of a personal reason for me about trying to do good, right? So I was very, religious growing up. I was born Catholic, baptized Catholic, went to all the, confirmation and communion and stuff like that. My kids went to Catholic school. Then I kind of fell out of the faith, and even like out of the belief for a while, right? Until recently, over the last couple of years, I started just coming back, right? And when I started coming back, one of the things that I felt strongly about, and I don't know what pulled me into it, but all I could think about was Mary, right? And I said, you know what? I'm going to start making rosaries because I can make paracord bracelets and stuff like that. And I said, I'm going to start making rosaries. Let me grab one right here. So this is the very first rosary I made, stainless steel balls, right?
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
So I make them now constantly, but immediately I was really under spiritual attack, and I'll tell you more of that off there. I don't want to get personal because it involves my wife also.
Okay.
And that's why I was asking. And it seems like when the ball gets rolling really good, like if I get a big order, and I'm talking like 6-7 rosaries, stuff kind of starts happening, some people don't believe in the rosary or whatever, and that's fine. Um, I think, but yeah, I think there are powers that don't like you doing things right.
Definitely.
And you say that you've seen Jesus, and this is the first time I'm telling anyone this. There's been at least two occasions I could have sworn Mary was here in my room, looking down over me. I don't know what people. I know people don't like believe that Mary is in play spiritually or in the region in religion, but I believe she's very much in play. Um, there was at least two different occasions, at least maybe three, that she has stood over my bed. And
That's amazing.
Yeah, but
I believe it. I believe
yeah.
it.
But anyway, I like to hear your encounter with Jesus. Actually,
It's a long story, but I'll try to shorten it. In order to understand it, I just have to tell you one thing. The experience, the second ghost experience I had, involved a strange situation where I was in university at the time, and I went home for a family dinner, and when I got to the front door, I broke down and started sobbing, and I don't have time to tell the audience why. But I was embarrassed, and I was in front of one of my sisters, and I excused myself to my old bedroom, which hadn't changed. And since I had left a couple years earlier, my parents' home was big, and they didn't have any reason to do anything with that space. So I ran up to my room, I sat down and on a window seat, and I started sobbing again for reasons I had no idea why. And while I did, all of a sudden, my hands and arms started to tingle like they had fallen asleep, but it was right away. Like I just sat down, started crying, and they started tingling, and I heard a buzzing in my ears. It might have been one ear, I don't remember now, but definitely a loud buzzing sound. And I thought I was hearing the buzzing in my arms, to be honest. And as I sat there watching and wondering what was happening, my hands moved on their own up like this in front of my chest and went together like that. And I tried to pull them apart naturally, and I couldn't. They were literally stuck together like that. And I stood up with my hands like this, and I'm like trying to understand what's going on. And I'm trying to pull them apart. And I felt a command to get down on my knees. And I interpret, get down on my knees and pray. And at this point, I still did not believe in God. I had just had that ghost experience. That was my only experience. And I sort of reasoned that God might exist, because I thought, if God didn't exist, what was preventing ghosts from totally running, haywire around the world, causing mayhem everywhere? And I thought, well, maybe that's God. But I wasn't convinced. But this happened, and I was told, get down on my knees and pray. And because I didn't believe in God and I was stubborn and a little baffled by the whole thing, I said, no, I'm not going to. And in that moment, I heard something else, or felt it, whatever it was very clear. And it was, I'm dying. That's what I heard. I'm dying. And when those two words came to me, my hands dropped like they were glued together. I couldn't pull them apart. They just dropped to my side like stones. The buzzing stopped, the tingling stopped, everything stopped. So this experience continued, and it became this whole crazy encounter with a demon, which tried to take me to the other side, and I fought, and I was successful not going with it. But a year later, I was visiting my father in his office. There's a whole prelude to that story as well. But it was a year later, and I was in my father's office. I had written this short story, and I handed it to him, and I was feeling vulnerable because I wanted to be a writer, and I woke up and written this story, and I showed it to my dad, who was a film director and very successful creatively. And the moment I handed it to him, that feeling that I had had before that said, get down on your knees and pray, came back right away. The moment I handed it to him in his office, in his downtown office. And my dad was not religious or spiritual. I didn't even think he believed in God, and I wasn't going to pray in front of him, but I was going to listen to that. I was going to honor that command this time, because the last time when I said no, like holy hell broke loose. And I burned up with a fever, and all kinds of things, crazy things went on. And there was no way I was going to, make the same mistake twice. So I just excused myself to my father's back lounge. I said, well, while you read my story, I'm just going to go wait in your back lounge. And he was like, okay. And I rushed out of there because this feeling was intense, to drop to my knees. And I got to the back lounge, shut the door, and I threw myself to my knees. And I started sobbing loudly, and words came out of my mouth that weren't mine. They were, "Why are we so bad? Why are we so bad?" Wailing, a plaintive wail. And all of a sudden, I felt a thumb, something that felt like a thumb on my back, because I'm down like a Muslim prays with my head on the floor, you know? And I tried to turn, like I'd shut the door. It's a private back lounge. I had shut the door when I went in, and there was nobody there, but I felt it, and I tried to turn, and like my hands had been the year before, you know, glued together. My body was stuck to the floor. I couldn't move a muscle. And I try as I might. And before I had time to like get scared, I felt hands, invisible hands, but my hand stuck to the head is on the floor. And I felt hands grasp my head, lift it up off the floor and turn it to the side like that. And there beside me on the floor was a spirit being, but fully formed, like not diaphanous, like there, like I don't even remember now if it looked physical, like in body, but it was like there. A person was in the room. That person was praying, like me, bowed to the floor, like a Muslim bow, prays, head on the floor. And moments later, that being lifted up their head and turned it to me, and I saw it was Jesus. And I did not have a religious background. And my family was Jewish, but secular, non-practicing, like non-religious Jews. But the minute Jesus turned and looked into my eyes, I knew who he was, like no question. Like my soul knew who he was. And he didn't say anything. He just looked into my eyes. And what I didn't realize was he wasn't just looking into my eyes. He was looking into 3 pairs of eyes, because he was looking at me and he was looking at my 2 attachments. And it was their shame that released when I fell to the floor. It was them saying, "Why are we so bad?" Not me. When I was saying it, I was thinking, what do I have to be so, shameful about, you know?
Right.
But he didn't say anything, but he looked in my eyes and he transmitted a message which said, "You are loved, you are cared for, you are respected, accepted, forgiven, special, and important." And that was transmitted to me. And the moment I saw him, all that shame I felt, the fear, the apprehension I felt about giving my father the story, and there's a backstory, but I was worried about my future. Like I was very fearful at that moment in my life. It was all instantly taken away the moment he caught my eyes, and I just felt blissful. I felt like it was like he was beaming something at me that I'd never felt before, which was like pure love. It was incredible. And then that message came to me. And then he literally turned his head away from me and bowed it back to the floor. And the hands that were still holding me turned my head away from him and bowed it back to the floor. And then I heard the door open for real. And my father go, I think he said, "I just heard you crying. Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm stuck to the floor. Call mom."
Call mom. There you
Call
go.
mom.
Call mom.
And I think it was 5 seconds that Jesus, that experience. I don't know. Time stood still. Time stood still. But those seconds changed my life, this life, forever. And then years later, I realized Jesus wasn't just talking to me, and he wasn't just talking to my attachments. He was talking to all of humanity. Right. That love that he transmitted, and that message: you are loved, you are cared for, you are special, important, forgiven, respected, accepted. Everybody. That's how God feels towards every human being. Right. Every human being. It was a very moving experience.
Yeah, that's such a great story too. Mm-hmm. And I actually love that a lot. It correlates with a lot of what I read, now, and what I hear too, different people that I follow on TikTok and YouTube, different priests and stuff like that. So mm-hmm. Very similar messages, or the exact same message, really, I guess you could say. But man, we got 10 minutes left, right? Oh. I do want to ask you, what advice would you have for someone who is maybe going through the beginning of where you were at all those years ago, right? What advice would you have for them?
Well, I never knew that prayer was important. But when I saw Jesus doing it, You know, that
Right,
that
right.
was like the ultimate.
Yeah, that went through my mind too, but go ahead.
Yeah, that was the ultimate validation. If Jesus is praying to God in my presence, I'm going to pray. And after that experience, I started to pray for the first time in my life. It was the experience before that, the one where I said, I refused God's command to pray. And I don't think it was about submitting. I think it was about surrendering. That's what I was being asked to do, surrender my will to God's will. And I refused. But after that, when I went through what I went through, which I haven't shared with you, that second experience, but it was a demonic attack where the demon tried to make me come with him. I fully believed in God, but I still didn't know anything about prayer. But so after Jesus's visitation, I believed in prayer and I started praying every day. And I didn't understand that, really you should be praying for, I didn't know what you prayed for, Right. I thought you prayed for yourself.
Right.
I was a naive kid. I think the main prayer I had was that I wanted to meet my life partner. And I prayed that every day. And I met that life partner within 6 months, and we were married within a year. And we've been together now for, don't shoot me, honey, 40, how many years? 41?
That's great.
A long time. And she is the love of my life and the most beautiful person I could ever have met. And to be honest, I didn't even recognize that about her when we first met. I was still, suffering from attachments. I recognized something special about her, but it wasn't until I had a very meaningful dream when I was going through a quandary. I thought, am I leading this woman on? And I have no intentions of marrying her or getting serious about our relationship. And I had a dream that night when I was really at that point where I was thinking maybe I should break it off. And the dream was, I saw her and I saw Jesus in the dream, both of their images. And I was told you need them both to learn about love. And so I listened to my dream, and you know what? It's the smartest thing I've ever done. And it was so right. It was so right.
Sandra says, awesome story, Mathew.
So what would I tell people? Praying is really important, and not just for yourself, but yes, for yourself. If there's things you feel you need help with, don't pray for material goods and things like that. I mean, you can, but pray for things of real value, the true essences of life. Pray for that. Pray for your mental health. Pray for your physical health, and then pray for other people and their mental and physical health and their well-being. That's a huge thing. That changed my life. But also, like, the biggest thing is, Jesus gave the in the Gospels, which I have since become a little bit familiar with because I was not religious and not Christian or Catholic. Jesus's message in the Gospels gave humanity the instruction, right. And we've not listened to it in 2,000 years. I mean, some people have, obviously, but the majority of people have not listened to it, and everybody's trying to figure out how to get by in this world and how to change the world and how to make it a better place. And the answer is right there. He gave us the answer to do as he did. And you do that for yourself and the world will change. That we're meant to be one true human family. That's who we are. We're not meant to be, fighting with, our brothers and sisters. We're one true human family, and that's who we're intended to be. And we do not have to fight to survive in this world. We can cooperate, and he showed us. He was the living example of that. And we quickly turned his words around and didn't follow them. And there's been nothing loving about Christianity. I'm sorry, but historically and Catholicism, going to war in Jesus's name is like, that's the biggest, oxymoron possible. How could that even be possible? The man talked about love, not going to war to defend his, anything. So, yeah.
But, I was going to say, one other thing I would add to that is to people is that tell them that, God loves you.
Yeah.
He, in all your faults, all your sins.
Yes.
He still loves you.
He still does, but try to do good. We're all aware of what we don't do well and the things that need improvement. So be aware of it. Like, be fully honest with yourself and say out and ask Jesus, ask God, ask your angels for help to overcome these things that are difficult for you to overcome, and you will get the help. Ask your angels for help. They're there to help you. They do help you, but they'll help you more if you ask them directly, because I don't know why, but that opens up some kind of a concession where they can do more. I mean, they're not going to literally show up and fix your life. They're not going to do it for you. You're going to do it, but they're going to set up the circumstances that will help you to help yourself.
Exactly. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about your book and where people can find it, or where they can find you too, if they have any questions or want to contact you. I don't know if you're open to letting people contact you or not, but
Well, at this point, I started the TikTok and Instagram under, My True Ghost Stories. On TikTok, it's My True Ghost Stories. And on Instagram, it's My True Ghost Stories with an underscore after stories, because somebody else had that name. Who knew? So I'm really getting a kick out of putting my stories out there and responding to people on there right now. So that's one way. And on Instagram, they allow me to post links. So I have posted links there to my website, which is mathewdavidhart.com. And I spell Matthew with one T, not two. There's a whole story behind that, which is in my book. So, but that's one way to reach me. And that mathewdavidhart.com links to my blog where those angelic messages were posted, and it links to a resource page if you feel like you or someone you love might be battling spirit attachment. I have resources on there and a resource page. And my book, this is it, 9 Ghosts, and it just talks about my journey to learn about spirit beings and to free myself of attachment. And all of it is there. It's available on Amazon in ebook and paperback. There's a link on my website as well that will take you there, to at least a link for the US side and for the Canadian side on there. So yeah, that's, I guess, several ways to reach out to me. I have a contact page as well on my website. So if somebody has a specific message that they don't want to share through TikTok or Instagram, they can use the contact page on my website.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, like I said, I'm gonna have to have you on back again.
I love it.
I've got a million other questions, and I had a whole list of questions I didn't even get to.
Well, I'm sorry, but that first story is just as important, because that's what started this whole mess.
Right. Yeah. And it's such a great story. And I'm sure everyone else would love to hear the rest of your story too. I think you've got a lot to share and a lot to give to the people. I really do. And I just want to thank you for coming on. And
thank you.
Anyone else, if you guys have any suggestions or people I should have on, you have questions, for Mathew, I will have him back on. We'll work on that. But yeah, man, I just want to tell you how much I really, really appreciate it. And I can't wait to get you back on, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I look forward to coming back on and talking some more.
Yeah, for sure, man. All right. Don't go anywhere. Everyone else, tune in next Sunday. Don't ask me who I have on. I never know who I have on. But I'll see you guys next Sunday. And don't go anywhere, Mathew.
Okay.